Welcome to the Pinning Combination Podcast. I'm KJ Pilcher alongside the Predicaments Wyatt Schultz. We're a man down this first episode of the Pinning Combination. Dick Briggs is traveling this week, so we'll look forward to having Coach Briggs with us starting next week, next Monday as well. And the three amigos will be back together. But
that'll be good to have him back.
Yeah. So we'll finally have our turkey with us after Thanksgiving
instead of before.
Yeah. So a lot to get to this last weekend. College really kind of getting really amped up here.
Yeah, it is.
Right
with
before
a lot
Thanksgiving.
of open tournaments, and then major colleges. The duels are just starting to hit.
Yes, and especially those duels. We'll discuss the Iowa State meet. The Cyhawk series was held Sunday at Hilton Coliseum. Iowa came away with a victory there. UNI and Nebraska battled in the West Gym. We'll discuss the results of that too, and we'll look back at last week and a couple of kind of memorable duels, I guess you could say, kind of special events that occurred at Wartburg on the D3 level, and then of course at Grandview NAIA.
So yeah, it's a good week.
Yep. So let's jump right into the Iowa State duel. Iowa comes away with a 29-6 victory, won 8 out of 10 bouts, 4 by bonus points. Some really good. One of those things where you look at it and the team score isn't close, but there were some good individual matches that were highly contested in the middle of all that.
There was, and that's what I had mentioned to Nathan before we even got on, that the score wasn't indicative of the matches themselves. Sure. A lot of great matches, even a lot of action. With Spencer even getting a tech fall, at least there's a lot of action going on. It wasn't like you're coasting through it.
Yep.
So a lot of good matches.
So some of the ones that kind of stand out, and I'll start with me. I think the two that. Well, 3, I guess, if you really want to look at it. 3 that stand out, 49, 57, 84, maybe not necessarily in that order. But the big one actually went Iowa State's way with David Carr and Caleb Young. David Carr scoring 5 points in the final minute to win 6-1 in that match. Some really good flurries. This Carr was able to score there late.
Right, and he's one of those kids, kind of like Spencer Lee when he was a freshman. You don't know at what level he is at. When Spencer wrestled at the Midlands, then I was at that point where he's capable of making the finals. And with him wrestling Young here, that's the way I feel now. He's capable of making the finals.
Yep, and of course Carr was a world team member this last year. For the junior team, and a lot of expectations. This was a big get for Iowa State in the recruiting process. David Carr, obviously the son of Nate Carr, one of the legends of Iowa State wrestling, who was involved, I believe, in the wrestling club.
Yeah, Cyclone Regional Training Center.
Yep, but his explosiveness, and he got in on some really nice shots. Credit Young. Young did a nice job fending things off. There was a flurry there, I think, at the end of the second that there was counter, there was shot, counter, reshot, counter, and it ended up in no points. Freestyle, I think it would have broke a scoreboard. Because I think there would have been a lot of points during that scramble, but it's just amazing wrestling by both wrestlers.
It was, because when you're talking about that flurry, because I thought Carr had him taken down, and it's like, how did he get out of that? Mm-hmm. And that wasn't the only one, and there was some in the third period too as well. Mm-hmm. But those scrambles, which is even though it's a low scoring match, there's a lot of action going on. So that 11,000 people got their thrill out of that match alone.
Right. And then at 184, kind of interesting to see that for the second straight time, first two duels that Iowa's had, Nelson Brands has gotten the call at 184. First weekend, Cash Wilkie went and wrestled at Luther. This time, it looked like both of them weighed in. Both of them were announced to start the duel. Both were there at Hilton. Brands got the call again and got a victory 4-3 in tiebreaker 1 over Colbray. Takedown there in that first tiebreaker period made the difference.
Yeah, and that's one of them overtimes you usually don't see with an escape takedown. Is that what it was? Escape takedown, escape.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then Colbray taking neutral or letting him go in that third period to start on his feet, which you don't see a lot of anymore.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Well, I'll mention that in a second about Dresser's reaction to the decision to start on their feet for that last 30 seconds. But Nelson Brands is somebody, he's giving up 8 to 10 pounds or whatever
Yes,
on 84 pounders. I think he saw that maybe a little bit on a couple shots because he got in on a few shots and just couldn't finish. And one time I thought maybe he was in trouble because he shot straight underneath Colbray, but he
Right.
was able to kind of get back out of there. That's the last place where he wants to be, especially when you're giving up some pounds.
10 pounds.
But he makes up for that. One, this is going to sound really kind of corny, but he makes up the difference with a bigger heart than that 10-pound difference. His heart and his motor are fantastic, and that's going to make the difference. That's going to be worth more than 10 pounds when it comes down to it in some of those matches.
Because he may need that motor giving up that 10 pounds because it's going to wear on you in that third period unless you're in pretty good shape, which he's in pretty good shape.
Oh, yeah. And you saw that, and I kind of got a kick out of it in the post. Me asked kind of what happened in that sequence when he got that winning or the takedown that really proved to be the difference. I got to his leg. I don't know. He was just in the moment, kind of going and wrestling, and I'm sure I'll look back on film and figure out what he did.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting that it was maybe a little cloudy or it wasn't clear what he actually did.
Yeah, I think he's just going through the motions and finished his match, and I don't think, in that press conference, I don't really think he had a clue. He was just kind of going, answering the question.
Sure. And I thought it was interesting, too. I asked him, Tom and Terry Brands, his uncle and his dad, have made their own impact on the Cy-Hawk series, when they wrestled, and obviously as coaches. And now Nelson has his mark knocking off I think Colbray was ranked eighth by Track Wrestling, knocking off a ranked guy that he made his own contribution to memorable moments of the series. And he said, I just treat it as any other match.
And as big as a duel as that is, and he almost stressed that he treated it as another match and not the big rivalry, even though I know it is. Treated it as another rivalry, and lost my train of thought.
But he just treats it like anything else, and that helps that helps stay an even keel, even though he was pretty amped up after he won. He ran off. I think he hurdled a chair in the corner and everything.
And the other thing in the press conference that I did get or remember was his coaches in high school were not Tom and Terry Brands.
Right.
They're his coaches now.
Right.
And
I actually got a kick out of his comment referring to Tom and Terry as Coach Dad and Coach Uncle Tom or something like that. It was pretty funny. So the one thing, the last thing I'll say about Nelson, you hear the term taking somebody out to deep water. It's kind of a comparison to going out there where you don't have stability and it's, they have to work and it's dangerous and, you have to swim your way back and you have to fight and work to get out there. There's no place to put your feet and rest or anything like that. And I think he can do that as much as anybody on that in that lineup. The others that I kind of think about in that same train of thought, DeSanto at 33, Marinelli, Kemmerer. I think Nelson kind of has that same thing where, you know what, if you're going to wrestle him, you're going to have to wrestle 7 minutes. In this case, it was 9 minutes. You better wrestle that whole time because he's going to go. And that could be the difference in a lot of matches if he continues to wrestle at 84 because you still have a 3-time qualifier. You don't really know exactly what's going on behind the scenes that might be keeping Wilkie off the mat and whether or not this is going to be a fluid situation throughout the season.
Yeah, and speaking of those guys just keep coming at you, and that's just what he'll continually do is come at you. So they better, like Colbray found out, he's going to wrestle that 9 minutes or 7 or whatever, but which is to me a lot of fun to watch. I like that go.
And on the Iowa State side of things, Dresser in the post meet press conference kind of said that final decision, as we mentioned, Brand scored a escape in tiebreaker 1, then got the takedown. Colbray escaped, so it was essentially tied going into that second 30-second tiebreaker 1 period. Colbray elected to start on their feet and give the automatic escape. Dresser said that was more his decision. He had seen Colbray kind of hang on to rides in practice, got the feeling that maybe Colbray was more comfortable on his feet, said, let's start out on our feet and get that takedown instead of maybe hanging on to a ride and then giving up an escape or reversal in the last seconds and kind of get.
Because at the moment that happened, I thought because Colbray got out of Nelson faster than Nelson could get out from underneath of Colbray, and so that's why I was surprised because I thought Colbray could ride him out. And so I was a little surprised, and then to start off your feet and give him a point right off the bat, just was a little surprising to me.
I agree with you. It's something that they might reconsider if it comes up again. And then at 149, the other big one where Pat Lugo edged Jarrett Deegan 4-3 at 149. Deegan had 2 wins over Lugo last year. Lugo was able to avenge those 2, but a little bit of controversy there with some of the calls in the third period. But
it was a wild match.
It was.
For a 4-3 match, the scrambles, and had it not been for that locked hand call and resetting the clock, Deegan really had him in trouble.
Yeah.
With his length, and of course Lugo is a little short, and it just it makes it tough.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. It just comes down to awareness and the crowd being loud. Deegan didn't realize that Lugo wasn't awarded a reversal, so he locked up around on the chest and eventually ended up putting Lugo on his back. The one thing with the officials, Jason Wedgbury seemed to call it right away.
Yes,
he was the secondary official, and you could see him on the side of the mat going like this early on in that scramble. And as you said, at that point, the back points don't matter after he was able to put Lugo on his back. You go back to when the infraction actually occurred. Everything was wiped off. Lugo eventually able to get the escape. And then there was a situation at the end of the match where, I don't know if Dagan maybe kind of baited Lugo into taking that shot, because we've seen how he's let Lugo shoot in and try to cut the corner and use that length. That he's done in the past, especially in this duel last year. And Lugo was able to kind of fend it off before time expired, but there's question whether or not there are 2 or 3 counts for the neutral danger zone
And
call. And
Lugo was getting in there on a single leg, and with Dagan's length, you just about have to get both legs in there, or he'll scoot around on you.
yeah, and you could tell at the beginning of the match, Lugo had a specific game plan, because he was shooting to the outside that would cut away from Dagan cutting the corner on him, and that's where he got his takedown in the first period, which was the only takedown in the match. But the more tired you get and the tighter the situation, sometimes you kind of forget about that and just go with instinct, and it almost cost him. But kudos to him for fighting it off and coming away with a win there, because I'm not saying it would have made the meet closer, but getting 3 wins in a row like that,
Who knows what mentally for the team wise.
The biggest thing, or one of the biggest things for Iowa, obviously, was bonus points. You got 3 major decisions with DeSanto at 133 over Todd Small. Michael Kemmerer with a major over Marcus Coleman at 174. Kemmerer looks really, really good here in his first 2 matches, back from a long period out due to injury. And then Jacob Warner at 197 took care of business against Joel Shapiro with an 11-2 major. But it's, as you mentioned, Spencer Lee's technical fall at 125 over Mackel, followed by DeSanto's major decision at 133. That was kind of the spark that really set the tone for the entire duel, with those 2 coming out there and dominating early.
Yeah, and Kemmerer, back to Kemmerer, there was a couple of situations in there where he's just like his old self, where you thought he was in trouble, and all of a sudden he's in on top on a couple of those takedowns.
Yeah.
He's a good one. The other thing that actually surprised me with Marinelli was Straw taking him down right off the bat.
Getting the first takedown there.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and Straw did a good job. I mean,
Very good job.
13-7 a regular decision, but Straw, a Big 12 champ. I thought maybe that was bonus point, another chance for bonus points there, and that takedown helped him kind of keep it to a decision, and especially moving up a weight too for that. Ian Parker came away with a victory for Iowa State. The only other one scoring with 14 seconds left in overtime to top Carter Happel 6-4, and then Tony Cassiope at heavyweight came away with a 6-0 decision over Gannon Gremmel.
Yeah, Carter kind of right at the end of that overtime, that first overtime or sudden victory one, he kind of slipped at the end there and
looked like he got caught a little flat-footed.
Right. Yeah. And then got taken down because that was a pretty good match that I actually thought could have gone one either way. So just one of those little mistakes that I guess he'll learn from.
Iowa State. The one other thing you kind of mentioned, the 11,000 fans. It was a great crowd. I thought it was really energetic, and I think it was more of a balance. Hawkeye Cyclone fans split, which is good to see, because we've seen in recent years, we've had the Black Curtain Gate, where they drop the Black Curtain to hide empty seats. We've seen Hilton filled with more Hawkeye fans than Cyclone fans in the past as well. But this certainly is a a step forward, and that 11,238 fans is the most at Hilton for a duel since December 10th, 1999, where they drew 12,327
20 years. It's been 20 years.
for that big of a crowd, and it was exciting. I think it was a good crowd.
It was a good crowd, and dang, I lost my train of thought again. But yeah, it was fun.
Fun.
It was, and anytime you can get that full for any size arena, it's a lot of fun. Whether it be 5,000 or 10,000.
So they weren't the only teams in action on Sunday. UNI hosted University of Nebraska. Nebraska came away with a 23-19 victory there. Some close matches, some upsets, some fireworks. A little bit. What kind of stood out there with the UNI Nebraska duel?
Well, maybe Lujan for one, but actually,
Lujan with a big major decision
Yeah.
over Taylor Venz.
and the other one, as far as the team goes, they're right in there if Holschlag is healthy, and so it's they've got a nice solid. Northern Iowa's got a nice solid team.
Yeah.
Probably 25 was another one that stuck out a little bit with Schwarm and Thompson. Your Underwood kids. So.
Yep. Yeah, and Alex Thompson was actually leading like 6-2.
6-2.
But Schwarm's so dangerous, especially on top. Was able to lock up a cradle and turn him and get that fall. And even Jack Skizlars, Jack. We'll just do that. With a big win at 133. The two things that kind of stick out, and Steyer had a nice win over Mikey Labriola as well. So they're at 74-84, and then Schwarm with the pin, obviously the highlights there. But one, and you even mentioned Holschlag not being in at 97, but bonus points, giving up bonus points because there was a technical fall for Nebraska, 141. They got a fall at 157, and then Isaiah White with a major decision at 165, and then the tech fall again at 197. So those are four matches that they gave up bonus points in. And then you look at 149, Max Thompson dropping a 9-7 decision and sudden victory. That one right there, if they just reverse that,
is a win.
that's a 6-point swing and a win.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't ever want to point at one
No.
performance because that's never the case. Because, like you said, if you trim out those bonus points as well and are more competitive in those matches, you still could come away with a victory anyway.
Exactly, and then you have Alex Thompson's 6-2 lead and then getting beat. That's another swing. And the other interesting thing that the Ridge Lovett, I think he's out of Utah, was on
Is
one
it
of
Utah
the.
or Texas?
It's either Utah or Idaho.
Okay.
It's one of the western states.
Gotcha.
Was on the Dream Team last year up in Chicago, so
Okay.
I got to sit and visit with him over a weekend, which
Right.
is makes it fun for me to watch some of these kids from around the country.
To compete. So two tough losses for UNI against Northwestern. Nebraska, the Northwestern was on the road. Nebraska there at the West Gym.
And both within a match.
Yeah. And you don't ever want to use, Holschlag as a crutch, and that's a bad comparison
Right.
considering what he's in.
I
But-
guess that's what I meant was they're within a match.
Yeah, and
regardless.
that's something that, if you're Schwab, maybe you're saying we're right there. Yeah, we don't want to be 0-2, but listen, we're still there. Flush them. Let's move on. But both Iowa State and UNI actually off until the Cliff Keen Las Vegas invite December 6th and 7th. So, kind of get some guys feeling good and working on some stuff between Sunday and the Cliff Keen as well. The University of Iowa will have another duel Sunday night. I believe that's December 1st or November 3rd. December 1st. At Carver Hawkeye Arena against Wisconsin. Bono, McDonough, John Reeder coming in with their team. Could be kind of fun. Seth Gross with them now, part of the program. And then you'll have, probably Wick and Marinelli at 165. That starts at 7 o'clock on Sunday night.
And I think I got a feeling it's going to be a pretty good crowd because Wisconsin been sending out a lot of emails about bringing charter buses down for fans.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I'm actually expecting a pretty good crowd.
Yeah, a little bit of
A
a
pretty
Badger.
good contingent out of Wisconsin.
Wow, a little bit of a Badger invasion there.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see how that turns out Sunday. And, of course, we'll recap it next week with our pinning combination webcast. Some of the things that we kind of wanted to touch on this last week really quick. One of them came in a duel last Wednesday at Wartburg. Wartburg defeated Simpson College. I believe it was 47-3, but it's kind of the secondary story as far as I'm concerned is Wartburg honored Kenny Anderson. Kenny Anderson was a 3-time national champion for the Knights who graduated there in 2014. He was from Billerica, Massachusetts. I believe he was coaching down in Louisiana. Died unexpectedly, tragically in October, just at the age of 29. Everybody that talked about Kenny Anderson talked about his personality and how great of a person he was. It was very fitting that they decided to honor him during the intermission there at Wartburg.
Right, and from what, not really knowing him personally, but from talking to people, he absolutely loved Waverly. I mean, that was his basically his second home after coming out of Massachusetts. So, and then with the other loss they had a few years ago, it's just it's just. And I'm one of those that have lost a brother, so it is really tough,
right?
Especially at that age, 29 years old. That's way too young.
Yeah, and that was one of the things with Anderson. So many people talked about how just great of a person he was, how much he loved life, and I still remember when he won one of his titles here at the UF Cellular Center, and afterwards how. Just you could tell how excited and thrilled he was, and he had he must have busted his lip open because he was smiling, but his teeth were covered in red and stuff. But he wasn't missing a beat just because he was so happy and so excited. And then I think he might have had another teammate win as well, and he was just as excited when they won. And that tells you a little bit about his character and how much of a team guy he was. And then that's probably one of the reasons why he was so beloved.
Yeah, he was just as happy for his teammate as he was for himself.
Yep. And Anderson went 76-3 for Wartburg, winning the titles in 2012, 2013, and 2014. He was also inducted into the Massachusetts State Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2011.
Oh, really?
So, a very accomplished wrestler in his tragic passing. So, it was nice that Wartburg decided to honor him during that duel.
Yeah, they had a pretty good intermission, and actually you can go into the Wartburg website and watch the video of them honoring him at half.
One of the other things of note that kind of occurred here this last week was it Thursday? I think it was at the end of last week where Grandview actually held a double duel.
Right.
Men's and women's duels for the Grandview wrestling program. The first women's duel in program history. And Grandview won both. In the women's duel, they beat Central Methodist University 29-17.
Few forfeits in there, which I guess at this level, kind of at the beginning of these programs, you can't hardly help. But it was still, I bet it was a great atmosphere to have that double duel over there, because with the Wartburg's men's team the way it is, and they had a nice little social beforehand, and it should have been a great environment.
Yeah, and just looking, I think they opened the season at the Waldorf Open, and the first individual to win a match for Grandview for their women's program was Hannah Michael, the former Union Community prep, and of course she received one of the forfeits there. But kind of neat, first person to win a match in the program's history, and we've talked about the growth. I believe Indian Hills is creating a JUCO men's and women's
Correct.
program. We've seen Iowa Wesleyan, I believe, adding men's and women's
Right.
program as well.
And
Waldorf has had the women's program for a while.
Grandview and William Penn is adding the women.
Small steps,
Yeah.
but they're covering some good ground. I mean, we've seen the numbers explode on the high school level now that coaches are going out and making sure these opportunities are ready available, whether it's with their team, whether it's with a separate female team, or even a club to get things started. We're seeing these numbers grow, and I'm hoping there'll be more Grandviews, Iowa Wesleyans, Indian Hills programs starting up, because it seems perfect to start men's and women's programs together.
And back to the high school, I think once these girls start and know they have their own, or at least there's more of them, more and more girls are coming out.
Sure.
I mean, it's at any particular school, whether it be Waverly, I think, has their own separate wrestling room up there, and but these other schools, you might get 5 girls out, and then all of a sudden they're out recruiting and got 10 girls out. Right. So
here's the thing that kind of bugs me a little bit about the past of this movement. There is always the chicken versus egg argument, where you would say, give them the opportunity and they'll show the interest. And the counter argument that wrestling always ran into was, show us there's interest and then we'll give them the opportunities.
Right.
And I think we're seeing now who is on the right side of that argument, because now you're showing that they have opportunities and the numbers are coming out, and it just disproves what they were saying all along. If you would have been at the forefront of providing opportunities, this swell of interest would have occurred years ago.
Yeah, it's from what I'm hearing and seeing now, it's just ballooning or blowing up. I mean, it's really taken off.
It's a boon. It's
Yeah.
a boon for sure. So next week, high schools will start competition, so we'll start working in more of the actual. We'll have our prep podcast to go along with the college. Nathan will do 2 separate again. Does that sound good? So we'll have both the college edition each week and the high school edition next week. They've already released district assignments, but we'll wait till we have Coach Briggs with us, and we'll break down that as we get into that first week of competition next week.
Yeah, it sounds great. And I will mention, since I'm here,
Okay.
this is the 50th year of the predicament.
Awesome.
And actually the first issue that we did this fall, we talked to the original owner.
Really?
Yeah, and people have to go into the website and log in and read that interview. And you talk about some interesting stuff that he had to do back in the early 70s. And of course, that's way before social media. But the things he had to do to get that thing going and what he had to do
Oh, I bet.
to take it to print, and some of the things that he did at the national tournaments. He was, I think John Doak is who it was, or it is, and I think he's 85.
Wow.
But just him and his wife were just absolutely fabulous to talk to. And so you have to go in there and read
Yeah,
it. It was
definitely
really
check that
interesting.
out.
And also next Monday, as long as we're getting at it, our first set of rankings will come out on next Monday.
Okay.
So after the podcast, but
So watch for those at thepredicament.com. And they can also, you mentioned social media. On Twitter, they can follow you.
predicament_IA, predicament IA.
Okay, so if you're not following Wyatt, make sure you do that.
And the Facebook, the predicament Facebook. So
Awesome. So nice to get back in the saddle again, as
It
Gene
is.
Autry used to sing.
it is. And,
Nobody watching knows who Gene Autry is, I don't think, but
Yeah,
That's right.
and it's nice to be able to do it at this time of day.
Yeah.
I think this is absolutely great.
we're recording during the afternoon instead of in the evening hours like we used to, and that certainly was could be a chore sometimes.
It can.
But we were willing to do whenever, to be able to bring you guys some wrestling content for sure. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in every week as well with the Pinning Combination podcast, and we'll leave you with our regular tagline.
As always, let's keep wrestling on the move.